Okay, so hopefully this will now start doing what it's supposed to do. Okay, so if you can see the stream now, please let me know. That's what I get for trying something new. Okay, let me get my chat where I can see it, and I'll turn the camera on and welcome. Happy birthday to me. I was trying to do the stream through what I record my podcast through, and apparently scheduling a stream and then doing it through there is not the right strategy. So I'll just have to figure that out next time, and schedule it in a different way, I guess. But welcome. It is my birthday, and because it's the middle of the week, we're waiting until this weekend to do something for it. So I thought, why not still stream? Beth has to go into the office on Thursdays anyway, so middle of the week birthdays, and as you get older, you don't necessarily do as much for birthday. So thought I'd talk about the pin show. I've been gathering some new toys and excited for that. So yeah. So thanks for popping in and joining me this evening. So let's get started. Okay. So shuffle some of this out of the way. I don't need the keyboard now. So I wanted to start out. I got some mail in, and this is from local pin club friend Mark. And check this out. He drew a custom card from a still that I had. How cool is that? And then he also has been making some like stickers, and this is Mark Palmer. And Mark, I don't know if you're on here, but you'll see him in the chat sometimes or on like the Pin Addict streams. Mark Palmer 06, I think, is his Twitch name. But how cool is that? I have a drawing and I'm holding a pin, and that's just really cool. So very appreciative of that. I thought that was really neat to get in the mail. He showed me at Pin Club a few weeks ago because he does it digital art like on an iPad. And I just thought that was really cool. I saw kind of the initial rough sketch and then it showed up in the mail. But yeah, so Arkansas is coming up, and I am doing two different things at the Arkansas Pin Show. On the Friday afternoon-ish, I'm doing a 2.5-hour long live stream, and I'll be interviewing some of the vendors, and it's going to be 15-minute slots, I think. And it's going to be, I've got the list over here, like TriStar Studios, Sean Newton, Lisa Vaness, Joe from Gentleman Stationer, Greg Bond, who's part of the Pin Collectors of America. I think that's what PCA is. Daryl from D Squared Arts, Danny Fudge of The Right Pin, Ken Leslie of the Veterans Pin Turning Program, and then possibly also Chad, who's Elon Anchor, who's also the president of the Arkansas Pin Club. But it'll be a chance for kind of a preview for Saturday for people who are interested in, if they're new or they just want to see what the general gist is. I'll be set up in one of the event rooms, and it'll be my first live event, which I'm kind of psyched for. I think that'll be fun. And actually, talking about buying toys, I found a while back, because I use a mixer when I do this recording, and at some point I'm going to do like a behind the scenes, but I've been getting the necessary extra things like extra headphones for 3 people and then extra microphones. So I've been getting all the travel accessories that are needed to go with it. Hey, Tom. Hey, Lisa. Hey, Aaron. Thank you all for the birthday wishes. So I've got my 3 extra microphones. I can do technically 4 people at once. And I'm looking forward to doing the in-person, and, that's why I was going to test the Riverside platform, because I think that's what I'm going to do the stream with, where I don't need to schedule it in the same way as I do for here, because then it's more easily accessible for people to watch. But did a test run of the system last night. Actually, I was recording for next week's podcast release with somebody you might have heard of, Brad, the Pin Addict. So that was a great recording, and Olive Octopus Inc. was a guinea pig who I'm very gracious. She was able to test the platform and see how it works, because you can have an audience that is kind of a hidden audience. So I want to use that and do some different things as I do some of the podcast interviews or whatnot. I think that would be an interesting way for like channel members or whatnot. I can throw the link up in the Discord or something like that. So you can kind of get a behind the scenes look and, get a sneak peek of some of the episodes. And if you haven't seen the episode that released today with Rob Sanchez of Rob's Penworks, thought that was a good conversation where I loved his quote and I made the little short that, before AI, he was the AI because his manager would be standing over his shoulder saying, okay, in CAD, do this, make it bigger, change it, make it look different. And that kind of laughed. And then we also shared the appreciation for the Hewlett Packard 32-pound copy paper, which is like one of the best, least talked about papers there is. If you need something fairly easily accessible, that's probably one of the least expensive per sheet type things that you can get. So if you've not tried the Hewlett Packard 32-pound copy paper, it's got a smooth coating on it. It's actually quite great. So that was one of the things early on in my pen career in 2015-ish, 2016, when I was making some journal inserts for the covers and things that I vended at the Arkansas Pen Show. That's what I was using as the paper because it was easy to get. Easier then. Now it's hard to go to an office supply store and find it, but you can get it online and have it within a couple days because someone from Pen Club was looking at making some inserts. And I suggested that to him, and he bought a ream, and he said he's been very pleased with it. So if you're looking for kind of good scratch paper, we all kind of get to the point where we don't want to use bad paper anymore. That's kind of a good middle ground in terms of a paper that you can get and you're not using Graphilo or yu-sari for, scratch notes. That would be kind of awesome because you're writing on great paper, but also terrible because that could get really expensive really quick. So some other toys, because I've been trying to think of how I'm going to incorporate the typewriters more. I treated myself and I got one of the little Osmo cameras so I can kind of do more of a vlog style recording, and it'll flip around and do the front or back with the little gimbal. And I thought this would be helpful as well for like the pen show type thing where, you can flip it around and get the first person view and whatnot. It also works as a webcam. So I've been taking advantage of the tech geek side and stocking up on a little bit of equipment in prep for the Arkansas thing. It's a good excuse if nothing else. And it's my birthday month, today being my birthday. So of course I needed to get some presents. My main present though, I'm going to wait until the pen show and see what I might find there to be a proper present. But the other thing in the pen show that I'm going to be doing is the Arkansas Pen Show has Saturday night roundtables. And that's after the show is done. And there's people who are hosting different tables. So I think Olive Octopus is doing one on ink swatching. There's normally someone talking about vintage pens. I am actually doing one on next level analog, which is typewriters, because I've really gotten into the typewriters and I've really been digging them. And I've been working on some prep of how to talk about them. I think I'm going to take 5 or 6 with me and set them up and just have some paper there for people to be able to use them and try them out and play with them, because, it's kind of addictive once you start. If someone ends up buying 12, I hold myself not responsible for that, but I will support them and help them find them. But as part of that, I've been figuring out, and this is what I've been working on, and I wanted to get some feedback, and I know that the lighting is going to fight with this a little bit, but what I think I'm going to do is have different samples of different paper. So this is Tomoe River 52, this is yu-sari, this is Graphilo, this is Krina, and I was going to do different typing samples on each one and show how you can use paper you probably already have. And this was kind of like my, test run on some Krina, just typing out, how I've started using typewriters a lot more in terms of my swatch cards, my letter writing. And it's neat to see, like, when letters make it to places. There's a couple of you who've probably received type letters by now, or half type one of my 50/50 letters where I'll type the first half and then handwrite in the second half with whatever pen I happen to be using. But if you were attending or you are going to be attending, what would you might want to, if you're not familiar with typewriters and or papers, what are some things that you might want to know that I can incorporate as I'm doing this prep of, you know, typing on different papers to show how one, the different typefaces. So you can see like, um, these were typed on different typewriters. So that would be the font equivalent. And I'll zoom in one more level. I think it'll help with the light. I have Yamamoto typewriter paper, and that's one other thing that when I get some more time this weekend, I have some of the A5 paper sampler packs, and I plan on pulling out some onion skin, the typewriter paper, and some of their other out of the tester packs, and then all of this will end up in my paper testing book that goes along with my ink swatches, the 16 millimeter ring Me Plus. But what else aside from paper and how the two different main colors of ribbon? Because I don't want to go, because I'm still new to typewriters. I've learned a lot in a short amount of time. I don't want to go full typewriter nerd, but what are something, as if you were interested in possibly looking at one or using one and you ever have, when it comes to your stationary items, what are some things you might be interested to know or learn or hear about? Because I want to be sure I'm doing something that kind of an intro slash this is how I found to do less screens and more analog nature, that's really working for me. I'm going to show out of my insert for my calendar how I typed in all of the, get to the one of the months here, how I use the typewriters to type in all the dates on undated inserts, and typing out months, and using it for the different things like that. So I'm just curious if there's something that you would want to hear if you were attending, or if you are attending, that might be beneficial, because we're all going to approach something like this different, like this whole hobby. Different ribbons. I don't have a script typewriter yet, Tom, but it's on the, I'm hunting. And yeah, okay, that's good. So just some general typewriter information, and I could honestly probably type some of those out, because I'm gonna have, I think Krina Spark Paper and Tomoe 52 are gonna be the papers that I have there for just people to load a sheet in, type something, during the little bit of time at the round table, or if they want to, in the evening, I'm sure I will bring one of the typewriters around to, let's see, which camera is this here? That's 3 of the ones that I've been prepping and making sure they're ready to go. The one on the left is the one I was doing last week for the swatch cards. Plotter paper, I will try that, Tom. That's another one I was thinking about. So that's why I wanted to ask these kind of questions, because I think I've hit, of my A5 is probably the largest size option that I already own. The Tomoe, the Krina, I have a lot of the plotter paper, so I can pull some of that and do a sample. But my thought is, if someone wants to take one of these afterwards, I could do that, because I can always make another. But that's good to know. I'll try and do some of the plotter paper, some of the plotter blue paper, if I'm going to do that as well, just to kind of have it as a reference. And I'll have to see, because all my ribbons are pretty much the same. I've got the black and red. That's why I was doing dual typing color on, a couple of these. But yeah, okay. I'll do that. That's a good idea, Tom. Thank you. I'll take a couple of swatch cards and I can type, because I'm sure I can find a new ink there and type out the card and stuff like that. So definitely will be helpful. And then if nothing else, I think there's a lot of people who will be curious about it, because they might not have ever used it. Oh, and I did want to show this. I thought it was funny. My wife left me a card this morning for my birthday, and to her favorite husband. I'm the only one, so yeah, I thought that was humorous of how she wrote that. But funny little birthday card. I had that, the stack of paper here, and it had pencil washi holding it closed, which, all sorts of fun ways for washi. Well, I do have a wonderful wife, and I'm fearful at the pen show, because last year it was her first time going to a pen show, and she was new to the hobby. Now she's fully in, so I'm feeling that she will do some damage in a good way, because why not? Jump into the hobbies. It's a good escape. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see now that she knows more of what she likes to write with, and things like that, what she ends up with. So I think last year she ended up with 3 pins, a Galen, a Stology, some Traveler's inserts, I think possibly another Traveler's cover, some cases, and that was all like show 1. But yeah, so in the typewriter thing, and I will say I've been using over this week, I've even gone back. I work in IT, and there's some stuff I have to constantly reference. So I'll try and do that. Essentially, Tom, what I would do is I would type, and I can show here. Let me just find one of these random. There we go. So when I was at the convention a couple weeks ago, if you're not familiar with Avatar: The Last Airbender, there's somebody who does like an experience thing, and he had a little tea room set up. So he gave me a tea, I show, I think is the name of the game that's from. But what I would do is I would type out the first part of a letter, and then I would just, continue writing and just do kind of a 50-50 letter. So it would be too challenging to like skip a line and then try and write in the middle. So it's kind of just typing half of the message out, and then, writing the rest of the letter. And then at the bottom, where I would normally put what pen and ink, I'm doing pen, ink, paper, and what typewriter I was using. So I kind of add that on as the fun little thing that those of us in the hobby who have gotten into writing letters, you're always going to put what pen you're using or whatnot. And speaking of, if you haven't seen the video on the Ebonite Esvine that takes the Yovo nib, it's actually a pretty nice pen. I've had this on the desk because that was fairly recent that I made it, and I've been using it. And one, I really like the ink that's in it, the old burgundy sailor ink. But the Yovo nibs, and this is a good weight where it's not too light and not too heavy. It's a good mid weight for me. And yeah, so this has been getting quite a bit of use through this week and towards the end of last week. And for the cost, it's pretty nice. And even the colors of the Ebonite, it shows a little bit better here than it might have on the video. You can see some more of the swirl in the material, but yeah, it's been fun to use. But yeah, that's how I've done the 50-50, Tom. I'll just type out half the letter and then write the second half and then sign it. And because I'm first and foremost a fountain pen user, but I go down rabbit holes and I like typewriters now, apparently. Yeah, and typewriter shopping tips. I'll kind of just do a little overview. I have not. I'll have to play around with that, Tom. That would be interesting. I do have some typewriter theme stickers that I got from Vanessa and also from Cora Korea Crafts. And I've had some typewriter stickers from Happiness Handmade. So I've used some of that on there. I haven't found any typewriter washi. That's something I'm going to be on the lookout for. I think that would be fun to incorporate, but I'll have to see about typing a border or something like that. There's a little bit of limitation, but with using A5, I think I could turn it and make it work. The only downside is, like, even typing out something, I didn't take for granted being able to center something in a computer. And then on a typewriter, you're having to count how many letters are in the word and, center it and then do the math. So I just kind of guesstimate and get it close enough, because nothing I'm doing requires it to be 100% perfect. And Tom, that's kind of what I was going for. Just introducing people to don't limit yourself. If you like the typewriter or the aesthetic or the sound, because I've found that as I've been, writing letters with it, like the last couple of days over lunch, I'll write a letter to someone with a typewriter, and then trying the different spacings and things like that. I did love that, and I haven't seen Lydia in the chat, but I got a letter from Lydia who's going to be at Arkansas, who's also a typewriter pen person, and she's an editor. So she typed out a thing and then had the editing marks on it, and I thought that was awesome. Like with the old school editing marks and whatnot in red pen, I was like, that is perfect. And because that's something with a typewriter is your options. If you mess up, you either kind of back up a couple spaces and type over it, or you start over. I'm sure there are ways to do the correcting and erasing. I have not gotten to that point, and honestly, I like the Tom Hanks theory of just type over it and keep going. That's why bother. Nothing has to be perfect, and that kind of goes along with the hobby as a whole. But yeah, so that is going to be the stream on Friday at the Pen Show, and that'll be on YouTube and the Riverside platforms. There'll be a couple ways to watch that. And then on either earlier Friday, I plan to do a walk around, and there might be another stream with walking around with Chad, who's the president of the Pen Club, just kind of walking up to different tables. So I do have one sticker, and let me see if I can slide this forward a little bit. It's for the podcast. So I have a little podcast logo sticker that I drew. That's the logo you'll see at the beginning or end of the recordings. So I have that, but I have not made an actual stamp or something, because as much as I like my little quick drawing, when I realized, hey, I'm starting a podcast and I need to have some sort of logo in order to publish it, I'd like to find an artist to do something a little bit more formal. But luckily I can print those at home with the little shipping label printer we have. It's a little thermal. So I'm definitely going to have some of those with me just to have something. But I'm thinking I need to make something typewriter related as well. But YouTube is weird, and I don't want to alienate an audience, but I also don't want to just make stuff that I'm not enjoying. So I figure there's enough crossover between the pens, papers, inks, and typewriters, because it's just another way of using the papers and things like that. So trying to find that happy medium and use it as a tool, which it is. And so, Tom, I can, and that's what I was going to be attempting at the beginning of the stream tonight, but because I had scheduled this on YouTube, I couldn't do the multi-stream, but it'll stream to Twitch and YouTube at the same time. And that's what I need to figure out, the logistics of how I can schedule it, but then also have the scheduled stream start on the right platform. I thought I had it working correctly, and I did not. So that is part of the plan, is having it also stream on Twitch. I've never actually streamed on Twitch until I guess the beginning of this stream, where there's going to be a 2-minute as I'm troubleshooting video, I guess. I'll have to go look at that, but yeah, I enjoy the streaming part more and more as I do it, getting to interact with people in the chat. And that's something Brad and I talked about just as a sneak preview of what'll come out next Thursday, that the interaction with people is one of the best parts of doing this. You can talk about stuff you enjoy, but being able to answer questions or help people or things like that, I really have come to enjoy that more than making videos about stuff. And we're still going to make videos, because then I get to talk about in a different format, but getting the real-time feedback, like being able to ask you all questions about, hey, what should I do for this thing I'm about to do at the show, and getting real-time feedback, I love that. That's great to me. So yeah, that's the plan. And I'm going to try and possibly, once I get the tech part worked out, do that just on the Thursday nights. Because I'm sure there's some people who would much prefer to watch something on Twitch versus YouTube, because the way things work. But we'll see how that goes. But that is possible in the Riverside platform that I use for the podcast recordings. So I figured I might as well, I'm paying for the service, I might as well use the feature. Yeah, Lisa, I know you've talked about and written about the streaming aspect, and you thought it was going to be a short-term thing, and now you stream 5 or 6 hours a week between swatching and art and whatnot. And each stream each person when they're streaming has a little community that kind of follows along, and then you have the crossover as you see the same names and others. So it's great. Hey, Adeline, thank you for the birthday wishes. See you in the chat there too. Yeah, I have two sets of mics, so I would probably just do for myself. And there's different ways to play with volume, so that's something I can do a test run on. Luckily, before the walk around stream there, because I have wireless mics that'll tie in with the camera thing as well. And I got one. Actually, I haven't even opened it yet. I got the little thing where you can take the wireless mic and stick it in the holder so you can hold it up to someone at their mouth so that you can get them to hear it, or you can have them speak right into it. And then mine I can put just on my shirt collar so it's close to my mouth, because while I like to talk about pins and stationery, I'm also a tech nerd at heart, and I love recording and stuff and the gadgets and gizmos that go with it. So I'm going to exercise my full right to nerd out in that way and get all the toys necessary in order to do it the right way. I want to be sure it's, that's the important thing. Audio is more important than anything else. And I want to focus on that. I want good audio. Because even if you can't see or the video clips out, if you can hear what's being spoken about, you might be able to go look it up later if the video part doesn't cooperate. But audio is really the most important part. Yeah, like I said, Tom, I'm gonna play around with it, and because I've got time, I'll probably be doing some test recordings, and probably take it to Pen Club with me on Saturday and do a mock interview with somebody, and it could be a live stream. You might see a short live stream on Saturday. Who knows, of just a test run of doing a mock interview. So, if you see a random alert pop up, that's probably what it is. Because then it can be kind of real world. Be at a restaurant, there'll be background noise. It'll be a perfect scenario to do a test. So, that's my theory. We'll see. But other than that, since I've been talking all this about shows and typewriters, I have been casually shopping by window of what I might end up with at the Pen Show. And some of Sean Newton's, I already have two prospectors, but some of the pictures he's been posting of the new ones he's making, those are going to be hard to pass up. I don't want to commit myself to it. Hey, Lydia, I was talking earlier about the letter you typed out to me with the editor's marks, that how much I loved that. Because I've been soliciting feedback for the typewriter roundtable and how I'm going to approach that for the Arkansas show. But, I did love the editor's notes paper or letter on the paper. It was a great combo. But one other thing I did pick up, and I haven't even started looking at it because I took it with me to when I went to the convention and then never even opened it. I did pick up Typewriter Evolution book. If you saw last week's stream where the typewriter themed, yeah, and those prospectors. The prospector is such a good pen. And then I'm gonna have this sitting at the table with me, and that's very timely because that's very similar to the one I got. But just for people to flip through as well, because this has a good, intro to people who are getting back into typewriters who either never used them when they were younger, or they used them and kind of forgot about them, and now they want to come back to it, return more to analog nature. So this will be something else, and I need to start actually reading through it, but been working on time management, and I've not been doing the best at it, of mixing, trying to make some pins, trying to prep for the show, making sure I'm staying caught up with letters and that, and then just normal life. So yeah, it's a good mix. It's not a paid course, Tom. The Arkansas Pin Show just does free roundtables. So it's just and I don't even remember. I think it's like a and that's the tricky thing with this is it's going to be in Lydia. You might know better because you're probably in the pin club. I think it's like 15 or 20 minutes, and you just kind of start at a table and then you go to the next table. So that's what it is. Like the presenter has an area, and then the people kind of move through. So a giveaway would not be practical, but I think I've been trying to think of doing because I've done one on the YouTube channel before. And I've got some pins that I got and don't use much anymore. So I might be doing a giveaway before too long here, and I think the number one pin that would be on the top is the Pilot Pereira because I got it and I really did not enjoy using it. But Tom, what I will have for a giveaway is the stickers, and then I plan on just having paper there and typewriters for people to use and type some. If someone wants to type a letter to themselves or something, or I'll take some of my bird postcards. If they want to throw a postcard in and type something, that's what they're there for. And even after the show is done and people hanging out in the lobby in the evening, I'm sure there will be a typewriter or three out between myself or Lydia or other people who are going to be there. I think and I don't know if you're bringing your typewriter, but because it has the German keyboard and you're going to be there and you're driving, just saying, it would be cool to have a German keyboard typewriter. So it's just a fun way to play, and it also is going to help me because if I'm concentrating on doing all this, I'm likely to buy less, which, is a good thing to consider every so often. I'd rather buy like one nice pin from a maker, and then material is really what I want to focus on, trying to find between Arkansas and since I have two pin shows back to back weekends. I think there'll be more material at Atlanta that I've not already seen. So Tom, all these typewriters I have either hard cases or they come in a case. So most of them have a like a rigid wooden case, and I don't have one I can easily grab, but well, I can show on this one here because it has the you can figure out which if you see that one on the left there, the case top slides off. So that is actually rigid mounted in the case, so it cannot move around. So it has latches. And let me see if I can let's see which camera is that. That the so if you look over on the left, and I know it depending on what you're watching on, it'll be small, but you can actually see the little latch on the side. So a typewriter will latch in because it's meant to be carried around. All of these are portables. I have one beast typewriter that is not going anywhere because it weighs almost 50 pounds. That one lives on the desk, and it does not plan on traveling anywhere because carrying it upstairs when I got it, it was the first one I got. That was an adventure of trying to get it out of my vehicle, close the door of the vehicle, go in through multiple doorways, and up to 2 flights of stairs to where my home office is. So I don't want to repeat that. But yeah, most of these have cases, and that'll be the other challenge of hauling 6 typewriters or 5 or however many I end up taking and getting them set up quick enough. But like those two on the middle and right there, those are meant to be ultra portable. So that one on the right is called the Skywriter, and it was essentially like the OG laptop. Oh, there you go, Ann. I was answering. It's a Smith Corona Skywriter from 1961, and that's one of the ones I took with me to the convention. And if you'll notice, at the convention, I learned that the metal ones slide, and that's why I have, and I had an extra one here. I bought the typewriter mats, which essentially will sit, and it's got a rubberized bottom, and then these little striations here hold the metal, so you can actually type, and you're not typing with it sliding across the desk as you go. So that way, especially with people moving through, well, the round tables. That'll be just an easier way. And then I got 6 of these, so that way I can just kind of leave one with whichever typewriter I'm taking with me, because I have been taking them places. I took 2 on my trip for a weekend trip. I took 2 typewriters, but sure enough, I wrote 6 letters and used both of them. And if I'm taking them with me, I'm going to use them. Now, I take more pens than I will always use, but you know, that's just those are a lot easier to transport. But dealing with the logistics of taking all the typewriters, luckily we have a little rolling cart that we take with us on trips, so that we're not having to fight for a luggage cart or something like that. Um, yeah, typewriter accessories, there's not a ton. It's mostly your paper. At least for me, I've found like the little mat, and I'll talk about kind of if someone's saying, "Oh, I want to go buy a typewriter," these are the things I would look for, because luckily it's one of there's enough of a resurgence that there's actual physical stores opening up. So Lucas, who I just know through having emailed with him, opened Typewriter Chicago. So he's a younger guy and he has a physical location in Chicago who he repairs typewriters. There's a guy named Kirk who has Nashville Typewriter, and there's a indie type shop. So it's kind of cool that there's enough of an interest and a resurgence for people to be able to open physical location small businesses, and most of the things they're selling are from 40 or 50 or 60 or more years ago. And that's just kind of crazy when you think about it. Something that I'd always thought about when I was more into vintage pins when I started, like, what was its past life? Um, yeah, Tom, I have something that's called a rock and roller. It's commonly used for audio equipment, and it's an expandable 4-wheel cart that has steering. And I'll have to find the picture because my wife took one. Let me see if I can find it on my phone while I'm talking here, when we were at the last convention, because I'm very much a fan of unloading once and then having everything on the cart, so that we're not having to, fight with. I used to go to a lot of sci-fi conventions and things like that. And the thing you learn in that type of arena is don't want to wait for luggage carts. And because that could be multiple hour ordeal depending on. So once I found I already owned the cart. We did it last year for the pin show, and we had a crate with our coffee making stuff, because that's the other thing we take. Oh, she didn't send me that one, but I will show this if I should have prepped a little better. But let me zoom in. This was just how I set up at the convention. I just had my bag and a typewriter, and that's where on those kind of conference tables, that thing kept sliding. That's that little one on the right that you saw. And it would just slide around as I was typing. But I had 23 people come up and ask about the typewriter within about an hour and a half I was sitting there. So that's when I knew that there's enough interest out there. That would be a fun way when I got volunteered to do a roundtable without knowing what I was going to do. I was like, this is something that I'm currently interested in, and I think it's unique, something different that I think would be memorable. Because the couple of people who'd never either seen or used a typewriter, like the fact that someone had never seen one, that kind of blew my mind a little bit. But the smile on their face when I was like, "Oh, here," and put a piece of paper in, and they typed some stuff and then took it with them, I was like, that was cool. So I can easily repeat that. And because even I think Lydia would say, when I went down to the Arkansas Pen Club a few months ago, I picked up a couple of typewriters that someone had left for me at Vaness, who happened to be local in Little Rock. And I just set the 3 of them up with me at the end of the pen club, and people were coming up and playing with them there. So there's enough curiosity. And yeah, Tom, it is a stationary adjacent, because technically it is still a stationary tool. If you really think about it, you are using it for writing. It's just typewriting literally instead of handwriting. So it's kind of just taking a step back, where we've already kind of gone back where we focus on using pens and good paper. The paper is just as important, because I was actually trying earlier today before the stream started on one of my fountain pen friendly index cards to see if I could type something on there, but unfortunately it's too thick to feed through the rollers. So I'm going to have to see if I have one of the typewriters that I can use to kind of do that in a smaller form, because the col-o-ring, they'll go through. They worked great because I was really shocked at how many cards I was able to churn through last week on the stream. But the index cards don't quite fit. So I'll find some way of doing that. But that's, like you were saying, giveaways or whatnot. That would be a unique way for someone to be able to type on something, because most postcards have enough give to roll through. And that's where it comes into like the big desktop typewriter I'm not taking. I could probably make the index card roll through there because it's going to win in a weight battle. But a lot of these are meant to be portable, and they're just, they don't have as strong of a roller, and they're not going to grip the paper as much. So I'll figure something out there, but I find myself in kind of a extra relaxed state when using them. I type differently, but I can still type quick. And yeah, I actually got the postcard idea from Needle Girl. She also goes to Dragon Con, and she was telling me when I was talking to her last time I saw her in person about typewriters, because I was just getting into it, that there was a vendor who had a table set up, and for $5, you could sit down at their typewriter and type yourself a postcard. And I was like, that's actually genius, because it's sharing something you're interested in, making a little money, and giving someone the experience of typing a postcard and then getting it in the mail. So it's like a triple whammy of fun. Yeah, and I'll probably do that, Tom, because I've gotten to where, and actually I have it here. So my Galen A5 cover has become my ultra zoomed in camera view. This has become my traveling paper kit. So in here I have some regular stamps, some postcard stamps. I was using the little ring reinforcements on some of my plotter pages. But in here I can fit A5 papers. So this is where I took to the convention envelopes, paper, stamps. So as I was writing letters, I could just take this out with the typewriter, get what I needed, and had it all together. I'm very much a fan of like one thing I can carry, and it has all the stuff I might need in it. So I'll have this with me, and I'll keep stamps in it. Because that's one thing with letter writing, is I've gotten more into it. I've really enjoyed it. But if I don't have the stuff easily at hand, then I'll get caught up doing something else, and I might, get delayed. So like I got a letter from Eric from Amarillo last week, and that day I went and wrote a reply because it was fresh in my mind, and I had a new typewriter to use because he was asking about the typewriter journey because he saw some of the posting on Slack. And I was like, I'm just going to write the letter right now. It gives me a chance to really put one of the new typewriters to use. So that's what it's kind of like with new pens. You want to use the new pen. So I've been using lately, more than anything else, my spoke icon, the green roto-ring that I picked up from Vanessa, my new spoke pencils, and then now that Asvine, because those are the new ones. But then I also have the go-to other favorites that are like on the desk, because if it's in my field of vision, I'm going to use it. For me, if I can easily get out of sight, out of mind. And so that's why I've been really trying to make a concerted effort to keep things visible and in arm's reach, so that I'm more likely to use them. And there's plenty of pens that, because they haven't been used in a long enough time, that at some point I need to move some of them to new homes. And that's where doing a giveaway of like a pen I inked once and then really didn't write with, that makes sense, or things like that. So YouTube is a little bit weird though with giveaways and how you have to approach it. So I'm trying to make sure yeah, Tom, I am going to have some pictures of that, because that is a common question of how do I store 12 typewriters. And I actually found these little shoe stands from IKEA, and I'm going to make an intro video, and that's part of the little camera thing I showed earlier. with my overhead camera or the stream setup, it's not as easy to do something that, I need to go to the typewriters to kind of talk through it. So I'll be showing that in a video, and I'm gonna try and get that out before the pin show, so then I can just have that as like a QR code or something that people could scan if they wanted to see and they asked that question. I thought that would be a good way to show, because I have, and I can kind of, let's see. Well, and that's what I plan on doing, Tom. I'm adding it in as a tool, so it's going to be intermixed, because that's how I'm approaching. I'm intermixing them with my normal writing and whatnot. So like with the sheets I'm typing for the show, those are going to be my typewriter swatch book pages of sort. So then I have the different papers with my different swatches, different inks, and then how they work with the typewriter. So I'm not going to make a full separate thing. I think that would be going too far, because I'm just a enthusiast for them, but I am going to incorporate them in, because I've been doing that slow and steady. I just haven't made a dedicated video on it because I didn't have an easy way to do it. So now I've got some different toys to play with to make that possible. But I really enjoyed typing the swatch cards. The stream last week was fun, and it was also a good way to make me do the swatch cards. So now I can do that, maybe next week or something like that, actually pull out inks in advance and be able to do the swatching, because I've already typed out the cards. So little things like that. I've been talking to Olive Octopus. We had the discussion of streams are a great way to get stuff done that is of interest, that people want to see or might have questions while you're doing it. And the swatch cards, it was a great way to accomplish something that I've had on the list for way too long. Get to use a new typewriter, get to talk about stationery, and kind of combine it all into one. So I was very happy with how that worked out. But yeah, it's just interesting, because I know that I go down rabbit holes, like all the mechanical pencils that I bought. Yeah, it is good accountability to do that. I'm going to mute for a second. I need to blow my nose. Sorry about that. But yeah, that's the kind of plan for there. And then, no, Tom, I'll show the swatch cards, and how I've just typed the name on the top. And actually, you can go now if you want to and look back at some of my coloring. That's where I got the idea to try it, and I liked it, and now it's become the thing I'm going to do for retroactively reswatching all my inks. Is I use the coloring cards and typed on there. And well, and Tom, that's why I like this kind of stuff. You get a chance to nerd out on something new, and I'd be kidding myself if I'm like, oh, I only need one pencil. No, I need one box full of pencils, because they're all going to be a little bit different. And then I'm going to want to use this one for this or this one for this. And even with all the pencils I got, some have become, there's some of the TWSBI plastic ones that now live at the sewing machine when I'm making pen cases. There's some that live in the, with my rotor fodden, that lives in the pen making shop. There's some that live, I have 4 spoke Model 7s on individual stands here with the different lead sizes that I just grab one all the time and use. And I'm forcing myself to use the different lead sizes to see what I really like. And, I think 0.7 is actually the one that Tom, and that's interesting you say that, if you watch the episode next week when I'm talking to Pen Addict Brad, he also had an IT background, and I think that is a common thing where if you grew up with an analog childhood, you go into tech. There's a lot of us who the last thing we want to do at the end of the day is look at more tech. We want to do something analog. I'm sure, I know just from looking at the names in the chat, a good portion of us here all work in the technology field in some way, and then we're here talking about pens and papers because it's a good way to escape. Um, there's at least 5 or 6 people I can see just in chat, from some who I know have known for years, some who I just know through the chat, and I know that they've mentioned what they do, and yeah, there's a lot of us, and I think we all kind of come back to the roots of the analog. And there's something with the typewriter, the sound. Like, I don't know about you, but I love my sailor nibs because of the sound. I've really enjoyed using pencils on toothy paper because of the sound. And there's something about sitting down and typing a letter where just that clack, clack, clack. And each typewriter has its own unique sound. And that's something that, like the one I took with me when I set up at the convention, that's the quietest typewriter I own because it literally has felt lining inside of it because it was meant to be used on airplanes. And because I had a couple people ask, they're like, "Man, that's quieter." I was like, "Well, I brought the quiet one out here because if I brought the other one I brought with, if I would have taken the other one out there with me, everybody in that hallway would have been coming up wondering what in the heck was happening because it's loud. It likes to be heard. It has no dampening in it, and it's just that full metal body." But for me at home, I'm sure. Well, my wife was joking that the hotel rooms around us because a couple of the letters, I think the one I wrote to it might have been David. I think it was David who's in the chat here. His letter was written in the hotel room, where I was just sitting down, and Beth was saying, "I bet you the rooms around us thought the room was haunted or something because they're just clack, 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 clack." I mean, I wasn't doing it in the middle of the night or anything, but it wants to be heard. That aesthetic and that sound, it's a good soothing background noise of sorts. But yeah, that's something I'll try and mention now that we're talking to, we were talking earlier about the panel, is if you live somewhere where you need a quieter, take that into effect because there are typewriters that were meant and designed to be quieter than others. So that is a feature if you were shopping for one, to investigate, a quiet writer or a silent, or the Skywriter, something like that has the normal deadening to it. And then space. Yeah, and Tom, that's something I really would like. This last 2 typewriters I got, and I had the paper here. The font is so different between them that that's why I'm probably going to type a lot of these sheets on typing the same thing from different typewriters, because let me zoom this back in. So like this one here is 8 characters per inch. This one, which is known as Pika. This one is 10 characters an inch, which is known as, I think Eclipse. So there's a whole different terminology that kind of comes into play, but something about that 8 character per inch, I love it. And especially when you get a lot of stuff, because that has spaces in it, like the single typed page. Just looking at that, I was like, man, that just looks cool. It has, in getting everything to line up with the tabs, I don't know. I love how it looks. And each one has its own thing, like the number 4. That's something you can tell a little bit. I've learned the age of a typewriter by how it types a number 4, because some of them have like the really intricate little shapes of, like with the triangle on the top, not an open top, or, little quirky things like that. Or the fact that I don't own a typewriter that has a 1 key. You don't use a 1, you use a lowercase L. And that probably will throw some people for a loop. Or like the one that Anne has, week 2's in the chat. Hers is the German keyboard, so it's a quartz, not a QWERTY. So, little things like that. And I thought about getting a quartz, but then I was like, I don't think I could type on that. I kind of unconsciously type, if that makes sense, where you just kind of get in the groove and you know where the keys are, and um, you just go. And I think I would have too many typos and errors. I want to try one, but I just don't think I could commit to using it for any kind of normal use. And then even like the customization of, there's switches on most of these. How hard do you want the key to press before it actually types? Um, you know, I found I like because you have to really, all these are manual. I don't have any electrics yet, and you have to give it some force to type. And in doing that, I found that I like it to be pretty stiff, because if not, I'll double tap or I'll get like weird key repeat. Yeah, or it has some repeat sometimes, like in this thing I was just showing here. Before I adjusted the thing, you can see the extra space in the word typewriters because it was set too light. So my brain and fingers were going faster than the typewriter could keep up until I made the keys require a harder hit to account for that. So, each one is going to be a little bit different. You have to kind of tweak it, but I love that. I love tinkering and, cleaning them up. Like Anne, you're talking about sticky keys, um, having to go through and get them working. Luckily, most all of the ones I have a little simple green to like wipe off the keys, and they were good to go. Fun facts. Yeah, I was thinking about that a locked bus, and I'm gonna have something that I just don't think I can type enough copies, but I'll have a couple of things that I can just like type out and then have sitting there for people to look at. And then at the end, if they really wanted, they could take it with them. But I think I'm going to put on my website, because I highly underutilize the website, a page that's going to be like a reference link with a QR code or something that, if you have other questions, go here. And I've tried to make like a little FAQ just that I found so far in this journey to be able to let people reference, kind of like your ink swatching thing. That's your jam, and you've got great articles on your site about the tools you use. It's like frequently asked questions. Yeah, and for those, just don't use oil. Use mineral spirits. And actually, Lydia, if you have an easy way to get the link, she has a video on her YouTube channel about when she was cleaning the keys on one of hers with mineral spirits. Um, oh, that would work, Lisa. Yeah, I can do that. I can do it as one of the typing examples, but I'm going to type a little bit, kind of like I will eventually do with all the pins for the what's it called, the Rolodex. Like where I got the typewriter, because like that little one we were talking about earlier, it had the name stickers on it of the lady who used to originally own it, who was like a 40-year Metro Nashville school teacher, and her typewriter ended up in a storage unit, and that's where I got it. Yeah, I think it's Lydia's Designs, and Lydia, you'll have to throw it in there. But I think it's Lydia's Designs. But yeah, it's that's the cool thing is, we all have our different tangents and rabbit holes, and I just happen to have be doing the streams and whatnot to be able to share it, because I'm naturally a fairly quiet person. But when I find something I'm interested in talking in, I'll talk your head off, your ears off, because I enjoy, I get excited about it. And that's been typewriters lately. And like just the hunt, like Tom, you asked earlier about a script. There was one that I have regrets that I did not get, but it was more than I wanted to spend at the time, but I didn't realize that it was actually a good deal. So hindsight, I would have bought it. But I want to get one of the script typewriters. And then someone posted on some of the typewriter Facebook groups, and they shared it. Someone else shared it in Slack. There was an old English typeface set of slugs. And I'm like, that is amazing. Well, Lydia, as someone told me once, that I don't have hobbies, I just collect hobbies. So each one of my hobbies becomes its own rabbit hole. Um, Eraser rabbit hole? I don't know. I mean, how many erasers is a rabbit hole? Um, I mean, these are the ones that happen to be sitting on the top of the desk right now. Not including any of the ones that are in pencils, but most all of the ones I have are Tombow. This was a Kikuyo, the black one, but the Tombow monos and all these different sizes are just so good that that rabbit hole was very shallow because I lucked into finding a good one at the start, and all I did was get different sizes for different use cases. Because I'm not going to take this big honking thing anywhere but my desk. I bought a few of these to leave them in different places. So there's one in the garage. There's one in my rotor fodden. There's one on the desk here because I had it that it didn't make it back to its home. So there's little things like that that kind of get, you know, included. But that's as far down. And then, well, there is the one, and I had it in the typewriter video I put out. It's the Tombow Mono that has the click in it. And then if you watch the interview with Rob Sanchez that came out this morning, hey, George, good to see you. Earlier, I was talking about, if you haven't had a chance to listen yet to the interview with Rob Sanchez, we went into a good discussion. I referenced you and telling you about HP 32-pound paper. And because he brought that up on the interview, I was like, oh, yeah, that's in my wheelhouse. But glad to see you, Rahul. Hope you keep enjoying that pin. Yeah, David, it is the Tombow stick eraser. Let me see if I can. No, I have too much stuff on top of my pencil toolbox at the moment to easily get it. But I found that is good. I hardly ever use the erasers that are built into pencils unless I have no other option. They just, I don't know. I'd much rather have a bigger eraser. That's why I have multiple that I have sitting around. But the Tombow, like, clicky eraser. But the other thing that I'm trying next time my parents come to visit, or next time I go down there, my dad is an engineer, or now retired engineer, but he had one of the electric erasers like you'd use for drafting that I would always play with as a kid. And I think my mom said she found it, and that's going to come here. So I have a powered eraser, because I remember you have to be very, very careful with it, or you will literally just put a hole in the paper. Yeah, but George, I thought you'd appreciate that I referenced. Yeah, it's funny you say that, Rob Sanchez, because not a couple of weeks ago I was talking about and suggesting that to someone at Pen Club, and they got a ream, and they're like, you know what, this is actually pretty good paper. We were talking about that earlier in the stream. Oh, refills for, oh, the power eraser. Yeah, those power erasers. It's one of those quirky things. Do I need it? No, but I played with it as a kid, and my dad is not using it. Has no use for it now, so why not? I mean, I bought a drafting table, and now it has been a glorified place to stage letters to be sure I reply to them and whatnot. I haven't actually sat down to draw anything on it because too many other rabbit holes and things like that. But eventually it's still on the list because I had to find all the right pencils before I could draw something, obviously. So now that I'm kind of settled on a good pencil mix, I'll have to get to yeah, Tom, if I remember, I don't know if I have any HP 32 around, but I think I might have a couple of sheets. I'll send you one next time I send you a letter. I'll throw one in there. An Amiga emulator. Man, that's going back. I had a Atari, like the original Atari, and then I bought a Commodore 128. So you could run the Commodore 64 or the 128 stuff at like a garage sale, like when I was probably in high school. And I played with that every so often because it had a modem and you could still get on some BBSs. And, I think a lot of us in this chat will understand what I'm saying. And a lot of people who are younger have no idea what I'm talking about. But that was fun to play around with. The vintage, that's, if you think about it, that's the that's the analog computing. We're talking about typewriters and going back analog style. That would be the analog computing equivalent. You're busting out an Amiga or a Commodore or something like that. So, you know, we all find our ways to retroactively go back and play with things we didn't get to when we were younger or things like that. Yeah, the Tom, what is it? Someone says my back in my day, the computer had to scream out into the void to connect to the internet. Um, so yeah, different memories. That's a whole nother different sound or no. I found the other day when looking through something, one of my zip disk. Talk about going back into looking back into the past, but yeah, the zip disk, the jazz drives, or the thing you hear every so often where people 3D printed the save button, not realizing that that's a floppy disk because it's actually Beth. She a lot of her employees are younger, and they were in the office supply room, and in there because she works for a state government, they had still not just 3.5, they had some 5.25, and most of the people who work for her had no idea what they were. And I was like, man, that's working in IT, even if people are younger, they still kind of have an idea. But you had the fancy puncher, Rahul. I just used a hole punch. Man, you have the better toys. Yeah, CompUSA. I was at CompUSA a lot during college. My roommate and I, it'd be one of those. Oh, it's a weekend. Let's take apart a computer and see what we can do to it. Oh, we need a new hard drive. There's still space in this case. We need to add more stuff to it. So, CompUSA took a lot of my time and things in college. So that's another whole memory right there. But I think I am gonna start wrapping it up here because yeah, I think I've covered what I wanted to talk about, and there will be some other streams popping up here or there. I want to try and get the streaming where it'll stream on Twitch and here. And obviously my attempt today of what I thought was going to be the right answer was not. It started a whole nother stream, which I thought I would, in the short notes, since a lot of us are tech people in here at the moment, there's a key. And if you're using the right key, it should stream to the right place. Well, even though I had the right key selected, apparently it generated a new one when I went live on the other platform. So it didn't use the one I had already set up. Oh, no, Fry's. There was a Fry's in Houston. So Fry's was a thing. So, well, I appreciate you all spending some time. Thanks for the birthday wishes. And thanks for the advice for the typewriter roundtable. I think I've got some good information to add to that because I've never done it. I don't mind talking about them, but I wanted to have at least something prepared to have, to be helpful for what people would actually want to know. And I think I got some good information here. So, as always, I appreciate it. Well, next Thursday morning, the interview with Brad Penaddict will come out. I think that's going to be a well-received episode. It's one of the longer. I think we talked for like an hour and 15 minutes straight, and there's like nothing that has to be edited out. So that'll be a good conversation. And then I'll have the stream next week. And then I think the week after that is the Arkansas show. So there probably won't be a stream that Thursday, but it might be something like on the road showing how I'm traveling with 6 typewriters. But we'll see. But as always, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one.